fakes the fumble. Goff goes crashing into the end zone.
It is intercepted by Jalen Ramsey.
Robert Woods, touchdown.
Picked off by John Johnson.
Touchdown, Tyler Higbee. Cooper Kupp plucks it out of the air.
Henderson with a good run and a first down, still on his feet. Touchdown, Van Jefferson. Everett in stride. Wow!
To the end zone. Cam Akers. LA will play for the Lombardi.
Flowers are blooming, the grass is growing, and it's time to chop the weeds. Thanks to our sponsor Manscaped, you can trim your holes safely and efficiently. I'm talking about ball trimmers. Manscaped, the global leaders in men's below-the-waist grooming, have an exclusive offer for our audience. Use code DTR to get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. Join the other 2 million men who trust Manscaped. They are here to make sure you are trimmed and smelling nice. After all, it's time for some spring cleaning. Hi guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm your host Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co-host Jake Ellenbogen, and we are coming to you about 2.5 weeks now before the NFL draft, which is very exciting. Draft season has been in full swing for a while, but these last 2 weeks are getting really crazy. Everyone's getting antsy and will be antsy, honestly, until the draft starts about 2.5 weeks from now, Jake. I mean, it just feels like we're like in the thick of it right now. Everyone on social media, all the talk shows, all the radio shows, all the podcasts. I mean, we're just really, really getting into this draft season right now. And, you know, as Rams fans, Jake, what do you think should be the first thing on our minds, or the first thing that we should be looking out for these next couple weeks until the draft comes up?
Yeah, well, you know, I think we were talking, you know, last time we were talking about like Adrian Peterson, all of that. And having just talked with Steve Weish over on my YouTube channel, he kind of gave us a hint that the Rams aren't going to go after him. So we do know that, you know, the Rams feel pretty good about Xavier Jones. So the running back position, maybe they tackle it in the draft, and, you know, that's certainly possible. But it doesn't seem like the Rams are going to sign anyone going into this draft. And I do think that offers, you know, that offers some intrigue because, you know, as, you know, Steve was telling me, the Rams were down to the wire with Troy Hill, but they haven't gone out and tried to get another corner since. So that could have been more about Troy Hill and less about just the position itself. I don't know about you. I'm not entirely thrilled with the idea of having David Long as cornerback number 3, but, you know, I know they did draft him in 2019, 3rd round, a guy they like. I don't know exactly where they're going to go, but I do think that this is the roster that's going to be the roster going into the NFL draft.
I kind of feel like that too. I don't really think at this point there's any free agents that really stand out to me as someone that the Rams will go after. I mean, there's certainly a few that I could argue maybe they should go after. You know, Adrian Peterson is one, for example. But I get the sense, just based on what we've seen and what we've heard, that the Rams are really comfortable with their roster right now. I think there's always positions that teams want to upgrade or maybe know that they probably should, or at least attempt to. But I also think at the same time, the Rams aren't really trying to, one, spend more money than they have to or can, but also I think the Rams, and we don't know what this is entirely, we can speculate, have a very specific draft strategy this year. And I would imagine that part of that is because of the cap situation, is because of a money situation, is because they weren't able to land some of the free agents that I think they wanted to. But I agree in the sense that I think the Rams, as of right now, 2.5 weeks until the draft, like the roster that they have. I don't think they're going to make any free agent moves or signings, honestly, although there's, like I said, a couple that we can maybe make the case for. But it is interesting. I mean, we'll see. And I want to point out that Les Snead and a couple of the other Rams people have been talking about Matthew Stafford as of late. because this is also big Rams news that we should probably cover, about how they see Stafford being the quarterback for the Rams for a long time. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that. But the Rams made a big free agent. Well, it was a trade technically, but they made a big move this offseason in getting Matthew Stafford from the Lions and trading Jared Goff away. I think that move alone is bigger than what a lot of teams do in some offseasons. So to say the Rams haven't done anything this offseason isn't entirely correct. But I want to get your thoughts on the Rams' opinions and feelings about Matthew Stafford and what they shared over this past week.
Yeah, I feel like with the Rams, they feel like Stafford needed to be the guy there. They were really waiting for somebody to, take up the mantle and be that franchise quarterback. And Jared Goff had inklings of that, but just ultimately it didn't work out. So now they get a guy that they've seen from afar. They know what he can do, has a very good reputation around the league. And in a way, you grab a guy like this, you don't really even need to make too many moves because he just changes everything about a team that you really feel like is just right there in terms of competing for a Super Bowl. So I think they look at him as a 2-year guy that 100% will be there the next 2 years, can add some stability, but also be, a difference maker. And then as long as he wants to play, I think they're open to bringing him back for another deal. But if not, I wouldn't be surprised if John Wolford ends up being the guy after sitting behind Stafford for 2 years.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how I feel about that, but I do think that Stafford, the plan obviously is that Stafford's going to be the quarterback for a while. I don't see him being a guy that is a quarterback into his 40s. I'll tell you that. I mean, I don't know. And this is all speculation, so it's really kind of arbitrary to even argue this. But I do think you don't make a trade like that and give away what the Rams gave away if you don't see that person that you're trading for, in this case, Matthew Stafford, being around for a long time. I'm going to assume that Matthew Stafford plans on being a Ram for a long time too, because I know the reality of the situation as of right now is that Matthew Stafford can leave after next season, as of right now. I don't see that being the case. I don't see him doing that unless things go really, really wrong this season. But I do think that the Rams will offer him a contract and extend him, and that they'll do that. But yeah, I don't know if it's just been so crazy. Like you and I were saying before the podcast, like there's so much going on right now that there's almost like nothing going on right now, because everything going on right now in the thick of draft season is all this speculation. And something that I want to talk about is someone in our division, the 49ers, traded up for the number 3 overall pick, which is actually one of the biggest, I'd say, moves so far as trades, regarding draft order. But Jake, the 49ers traded up to number 3, and that has to be for a quarterback, obviously. We pretty much know who's going to go number 1, and we pretty much know who's going to go number 2. We pretty much can assume that Trevor Lawrence is going to go to the Jaguars and that Zach Wilson is going to go to the Jets, which leaves Justin Fields, Trey Lance, and Mac Jones all at number 3 for the 49ers. My assumption is that the 49ers are going to take Justin Fields because I think out of those 3 guys, he seems to be the safest option. A lot of people prefer Lance over Fields, and I know that you do as well, so I want to let you speak on that. But obviously, because you like Lance, I'm sure you don't want him in our division. So who do you think the 49ers are going to take at number 3, and who do you want them to take at number 3? Because I think they're taking Fields, as I said, and I got a lot of heat from 49ers friends because I do have friends who are 49ers fans. And I kind of was mentioned, I'm not like super high on totally any of those guys, especially Fields, but not really Jones either. But I just think, I don't know. I think that there's a big drop off after Trevor and Zach Wilson. But I want to get your thoughts on this 3rd overall pick and what you think is going to happen there.
Yeah, I mean, I think they go Fields as well. I think he's a perfect fit for Kyle Shanahan's offense. And I just can't subscribe to the notion they're picking Mac Jones until they pick Mac Jones the night of the draft. And, if we're sitting there and, watch them pick Mac Jones, 3rd overall, then okay, I'll believe it. But I'm not going to believe it until I see it for sure. And, I know people have been saying, well, so-and-so and all this, and, this person's saying the Mac Jones, so this person's saying Mac Jones. It's like, I get that, but there's such a thing called a smokescreen. And at the end of the day, I look at the fact that Kyle Shanahan and Chris Sims have a really close relationship. It wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility for Chris Sims to be like, "Hey, I'll say whatever you need me to say, Kyle. I got you. You're my guy. If you want me to say that you guys are picking Mac Jones, I'll go ahead and I'll start saying the 49ers are picking Mac Jones." And then all of a sudden you get this leaked around, and it's all of a sudden now Schefter's saying it and all of these people are saying it. Well, today I just saw that Schefter was saying that they're, the odds are that they're going to pick Mac Jones, but they're, they could change their mind or something along those lines. Like, it's so obvious to me that this is a smokescreen. I watched Mac Jones a lot at Alabama, being a fan, and I liked him more than Tua, but I still feel like he was a great college quarterback. He ended up grading out as my 6th quarterback in this draft. I have Davis Mills higher. And I don't understand I don't understand 1st round hype. I think he's a 2nd round quarterback. So I can't subscribe to the notion that he should go that early. But I think it's all a smokescreen. Eventually, Justin Fields will be a 49er, I think. And if they get Trey Lance, he's my number 1 quarterback, so it'd be great for them. Personally, I'd like to see Trey Lance in Atlanta or, somewhere like that. But that's kind of where I feel, that team is going. I agree with you. I do think they're going to go with Justin Fields. I just think he's a great fit for Shanahan's offense, and he could end up being my number 2 quarterback in this draft. I like him. I think I like him like a favorite player wise. I like him more than I like Trevor Lawrence, like just watching him play. I don't know if he's better. I'm kind of iffy on him being 2 or 3. Lance is my number 1. That's not changing, but Justin Fields has gotten a lot of flack lately, and I don't understand it. So, I think that, a lot of that comes from the fact that a lot of these teams are pushing all this narrative, all these, false narratives about him to kind of, bring him down the board. And I don't, however you feel about that, it's been happening for years. We do know that, teams did that with Dan Marino, with the whole, I think it was pot or something that got him to fall when he was a pretty can't miss prospect. But it's been happening for years. So I'm not entirely shocked. I just, I can't subscribe to anybody, believing that that's 100% the case. Like, he's not a hard worker and, he can't read coverage. I just think sometimes that people run their mouth and don't actually have any, essence of what they're talking about. So I agree with you. I do think Justin Fields is going to end up a 49er, and Rams fans that are, upset about this or complaining or scared, they'll just, deal with it on game day or their game plan during the week. They'll deal with it the same way they deal with Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray, and they really haven't had a hard time. I understand, people are like, well, the 49ers, and they haven't been able to beat the 49ers. Yeah, that was when they had Jared Goff, and, Goff had a hard time not turning the ball over. So now I think you have a guy like Stafford. I think things change in that regard. But that's just my opinion on that. I'm not worried. The 49ers are going to get a good quarterback. Even if it's Mac Jones, he'll work out in Kyle Shanahan's system. I just think it's kind of a waste. But I think Rams fans need to chill, because I've seen that where like people are like so worried, and I'm like, I'm not worried, to be honest with you. They deal with Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray twice a year each. So
right.
That's the deal.
Yeah, I'm not really worried either. I would have been bummed if it was Zach Wilson, because I like Zach Wilson. Worried, I wouldn't have necessarily been worried, because I think, as much as I like Zach Wilson, I think that he is risky in a sense. But it more so would have been, I would have just been bummed that he's in my division, because it's always a bummer when players you really like end up in your division, like us and DK Metcalf, which was, it still hurts to think about. So yeah, so that, I'm not too worried about what happens at number 3. I do think it, as we've said, I think it's going to be Justin Fields, but weirdly, all the power in this draft, in a weird way, kind of falls with the Atlanta Falcons right now, because Atlanta is picking 4th overall. And they have a couple different ways that they can go with this. But the two obvious ways is they could take Trey Lance or Mac Jones. I think that they would take Trey Lance over him if they're going to draft the quarterback of the future, because let's be real, Matt Ryan is not getting any younger. And he probably has a few years left at the most. So I could see the Falcons taking a guy like Trey Lance or like a Mac Jones and letting him sit behind Matt Ryan, who would be a really good guy to sit behind for a few years. Or they can trade that number 4 overall pick to a team that wants and needs a quarterback. And there are a few. One that comes to mind is the Chicago Bears, because I just don't buy that they are all in on Andy Dalton. I don't care what their Twitter says. I don't care what their team said. I mean, listen, I know that they haven't made the best decisions in the past, so I could be wrong about this. But if I'm the Chicago Bears and I know in my mind that it's going Lawrence, Wilson, Fields, most likely Fields, I'm making a move for number 4 because I need a quarterback that bad. They need a quarterback that bad. And I don't not believe, I could have said that probably better, but I believe that Trey Lance could start for the Chicago Bears next season and do as good of a job, if not better, than Andy Dalton. And the Bears have to know that. The only reason that the Bears shouldn't try, and this episode that we're doing is just kind of about the drafts overall. I know that the Bears and Atlanta don't particularly relate to the Rams, but the NFL draft itself relates to every team, so it kind of does. If I'm the Chicago Bears, I don't not put everything on the table for number 4, because you have to have a quarterback that bad. It's not like a sit back and we'll wait and see. Like, you are not getting anything done with Andy Dalton. You're losing that division. I mean, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts about that, because I haven't actually talked to you about this yet. But do you think that could happen, or do you think that Atlanta will hold on to number 4 and take Trey Lance, or do you think they'll take like a Kyle Pitts? Because people think that they might do that at number 4 too. But what do you think is going to happen at number 4?
It's a good question. Atlanta could do a bunch of things. The problem is, when you restructure Matt Ryan, it kind of makes it a little harder to draft a quarterback, because you're kind of, you're kind of going all in on him, at least for this year. So that's the tough thing there. Now, what I will say is that when you look at a guy like Kyle Pitts, I think he's got like the lowest bust potential. Him, Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith. I mean, they all seem like the lowest bust potential to me. So if you go with a skill position player, sure. I don't feel like they would go with Penei Sewell, but he's my number 1 player in the draft. So if they went with him, I wouldn't be shocked. But I mean, I guess, you're absolutely right. They really are going to dictate how the draft's going to go, because we already know or have an idea of the first 3. With Atlanta, do you just trade out? Because, like, to me, I might just trade out. Yeah, I want more picks.
You're getting more picks for. I mean, that's what the number 4 pick right now. So I'm saying they have all the power. The number 4 pick in the 2021 NFL draft right now is literally probably for every team that either needs a quarterback right now or needs one within the next 2 or 3 years. Like, that is the pick. Because this is such a first round, I mean, depending on who you ask, there's 4 quarterbacks, in my opinion, that are obvious first round picks. Mac Jones, to me, is probably a late first round pick. I could see him going the second, so I'm going to say 4. You've got, obviously, Lawrence, Wilson, Fields, and Lance. And so we know that 3 of those 4 are going the first 3 picks, which means that 4, if you want a guy, you got to go to 4. I mean, Atlanta could get an incredible amount of picks depending on the team that trades for that. And if I'm Atlanta, I don't need a quarterback right away. I don't need one. I mean, I could take Trey Lance as the quarterback of the future. Could do it. I could take a Kyle Pitts, who's obviously like one of the most insane prospects that we've seen in a while. So, that's a safe option. Then you've got Sewell as well. But I think that there's a big benefit in trading back and gathering a lot of picks. I think Atlanta is a team that has the luxury to do that. And I think that they could take advantage of a team like Chicago, who doesn't really have the luxury. Like, they have to have a quarterback if they want to be even remotely competitive. So I think it's interesting. I think we'll see. I mean, I feel like if they're not going to take Lance, they'll trade out. And that's just what I see happening. I don't know. They could take Kyle Pitts. I don't know. I think that they should trade it. And that's not just because I have a special place in my heart for the Bears. I just think that pick holds a lot of power right now. I think whoever wants Trey Lance the most is going to get that pick, whether it's Falcons or a different team. But other than that,
what about the single digit numbers? What are your thoughts on that? I'm not a fan. I just think for so long, and like, I'm not someone who's like, we got to stick to tradition and we have to, you know what I mean? But I think that there is something, I don't want to use the word sacred, but there's something that's just so familiar, and there is this tradition and there is this familiarity with the way that the numbers are now. And I think that there is some type of reverence and structure in that type of sense of keeping numbers the way that they are. I mean, this doesn't sound like, to me, like this isn't an issue that I've heard players like talking about at all. Like, this was a thing I know that was, I think, proposed by the Chiefs, and maybe the owners meeting or the NFL. I don't know where it was proposed at. It's slipping my mind, but it's not like this is a hot button issue that players have been talking about for years and demanding and having meetings about. Like, this just kind of seemed like a casual suggestion that has now gotten a lot of traction. I don't like it. It reminds me of college, which isn't bad, but at the same time, there is that kind of like separation in my brain from watching college football and seeing their jerseys and then seeing the NFL. I just think you kind of grow up, obviously, when you get to the NFL, and I think the numbers should change. Like, it would be very weird for me to see a corner wearing like number 2. I think, I don't know. You get used to it, but I just don't like it. I like the traditional sense of the numbers. I kind of think that they're going to pass it, though. Oh, they are going to pass it. It's 100% going to be passed. I mean, I would say I'm more worried about the helmet shell and, uniform, like the throwback uniforms. Like, why, if we're just going to go cosmetic and everything, why are we worried about the single digit numbers and not the fact that you have to wear one specific helmet so you can't use different throwbacks? That's stupid.
I don't know. Like, I feel, because a couple of people have asked me this, and I really hate the idea, but it's like, I can't totally pinpoint why. So I feel bad. I feel bad that I hate this idea, because I don't want to make it seem like I'm someone who like hates change, but like, in a sense,
you hate change.
Yeah. And I don't see the necessity of it. I think it makes things like confusing. I think there is kind of something that's really classy about keeping, number, like the system that it's in now. It just seems very put together. I mean, it is pretty routine. And I think when you get to a point where you just kind of are mixing and matching numbers all over the field, it seems weird to me. I don't know. You get used to it. If they pass it, we'll get used to it and we'll deal with it. I'm not a fan, but there's bigger issues in the world than this. So I'm not going to like
way bigger. Oh my God.
Right. But like, I don't know. I don't think it's like, I don't think it's necessary. I feel like this was just like a casual comment that kind of like got taken super seriously. Like this, like I said, this isn't something I think people have really been campaigning for. It was like brought up and people were like, oh yeah, I like that.
Yeah, no, it is funny how it got so big, and the Rams took, they took a bit of it because they were in the, on their social media. I'm like losing my mind here. They did like a Photoshop of like their 4 players with like their numbers, their college numbers, like Ramsey wearing 8. I'm like, that'd be so weird. Every time I see 8, I think of Sam Bradford. So it'd be weird to think of Jalen Ramsey.
Like, imagine, yeah. I mean, it just would look weird. Something I do want to talk about real quick. Again, this isn't really draft related, but I guess we're just talking about everything at this point in this episode. This is a free for all. But
oh boy.
No, it's football related though. It's not like I'm just like going off. It's about football. Don't worry. And I talked about this on another podcast. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. So with Sam Darnold going to the Panthers, which we love, that leaves Teddy Bridgewater in an interesting situation. And I was on another podcast and they were asking me what I think is going to happen with that and what do I think should happen with that. And I said, well, I don't know what's going to happen, but an interesting possibility for me, and I hate this for Teddy Bridgewater because I hate this organization, but
Houston.
something that, is Houston. I hate it for him because I hate that, and I just think that entire place is a dumpster fire. But let's be honest, at this point, it's looking like they don't have a quarterback for 2021, and they don't have a pick high enough in the draft to get one of those guys. So at this point, I think, Teddy is, I think, obviously good enough to be a starter, and he either can be the best backup in the NFL in Carolina, or he can go to Houston and start. I think that would be something he'd have to think about, what's more important to him, starting or being in an organization that's just not absolutely horrific. So, like I said, I would hate it for him, but I'm kind of starting to feel like that makes the most sense for him if he's going to go anywhere. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think that obviously makes a lot of sense. The Bears and the Patriots. Texans, you're going to get guaranteed playing time, and Tyrod Taylor's your biggest, your biggest competition. So you feel like you have that one. If you go to the Bears, you have Foles and Andy Dalton. So you do feel like, while in my opinion, he's more talented than both of them, but you could get that moment where you have to actually work for that job. They could, go to Andy Dalton, as ridiculous as that sounds. And then the Patriots, look, I'm not as high. I'm not, it's not like unknown, my feelings on Cam Newton. I don't believe he can play anymore in this league. I don't think he's a starter anymore. Through eight touchdowns, 10 interceptions. I know everyone says he can run, but if he can run, then just move him to running back, I guess. I mean, he just can't throw the football down the field. So for me, I'm looking at the Patriots and thinking, I mean, him or even Minshew, if he was traded to New England, would be a better option than Cam Newton. When I talked to Steve Weish, he basically said, don't rule out the fact the Patriots do bring in somebody. Cam Newton's not the guaranteed starter. So, I mean, Teddy Bridgewater, which we also talked about, he said Houston makes sense. But I mean, I do think that New England would probably be the best fit, because if you can beat out Cam Newton, that's a really good looking football team on paper. And they have a great coach. Obviously, Bill Belichick, I believe, is the best. There's just a lot there, and they have a pretty high pick. So we'll see if they also get another weapon, but they added 2 at the tight end position, and Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. Obviously tight ends are like quarterbacks, security blankets. But then on top of it, you get a guy like Aguilar that can stretch the field. Kendrick Bourne, also underrated player, possession receiver. And then you have, Julian Edelman coming back. You re-signed James White. You have Damian Harris and, Sony Michel, and a really good offensive line. And hey, that's a pretty good look for Teddy Bridgewater, not to mention that defense isn't going anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think they're both good options. I think Houston is more likely. But, I obviously feel for him a little bit to have been replaced by Sam Darnold. As much as I love this move for Sam and for the Panthers, I think this is a great move for them. It is a little bit of a bummer to see a guy like Teddy Bridgewater. I feel like this has happened to him, just one thing after the other, a lot. And I think that he is a good quarterback. So that's obviously a bummer for him. But other than that, I'm trying to think off my mind, kind of going through this mental checklist of just like big moves that have happened within the past couple weeks regarding the draft. I mean,
That's kind of it.
yeah, I mean, there really isn't, again, other than just speculation of what's going to happen. But I think in this case, the only thing left really for speculation is that number 4 pick. I think once we know what's going to happen with that, we can kind of guess how the rest of the cards are going to fall. But I think that's going to impact how the rest of the draft goes dramatically, depending on what happens there. And I just think, I think we're, like I said, there's so much going on that there's nothing going on because we've talked about it so much.
Yeah, so before we dive into that, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to hear a word from our sponsors over at Manscaped, and rather Alexis, about Manscaped, and we'll be right back.
Spring has sprung and Manscaped has the best tools to get you ready. Manscaped are the global leaders in men's below-the-waist grooming and have forever changed the grooming game with their amazing products. They are here to help with your above-the-waist holes, too. Have you heard of their Weed Whacker? This nose and ear hair trimmer provides proprietary skin-safe technology, which helps prevent nicks, snags, and tugs in those delicate holes. No more gross nose hairs flying in the wind. The premium Manscaped Weed Whacker uses a 9,000 RPM motor-powered 360-degree rotary dual-blade system. Manscaped is making whacking your weeds a time to look forward to, delivering maximum confidence while providing hygiene. Speaking of incredible hygiene, Manscaped has formulations to keep you fresh and ready for everything that comes your way all day. The Crop Preserver is an anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer. It's starting to get hot outside, and this is crucial so your balls stop sticking to your leg. That's the legit worst. You'll also find the Crop Reviver, spray-on toner for your balls, which will keep you smelling fresh down there just like spring flowers. Speaking of smelling fresh, complete your grooming game this spring with the new refined cologne signature scent by Manscaped. This stuff is legit and will have you smelling like royalty. The cologne is light, approachable, and gentlemanly in all the right ways. You'll be the talk of the next quarantine hang. Smell good, feel good this spring. Get 20% off plus free shipping using code DTR at manscaped.com. Do yourself a favor and always use the right tools for the job.
Yeah, I mean, with the Rams, it's like really just meetings at this point. Who have they met with as far as prospects? And, there's a bunch of names, but focusing on 2 that they met with multiple times, which is always a, big indicator there. You have Quinn Miners out of Wisconsin Whitewater, center/guard. They clearly are interested in. And you have Asante Samuel Jr., the son of New England Patriots, star cornerback Asante Samuel back in the day, who they've also met with multiple times. So out of those 2, do you think the Rams get both, one, or none of them?
I think Samuel will be gone before our pick at 57. I really like him, and I think that he's going to go like early in the second. So I'm not entirely sure that they'll get him, but I also think that Miners is I don't think that he should be picked that early. So I'm curious what they're going to do in the second round. If Samuel's there, maybe they take him. I mean, it seems like they like him a lot. I just don't think that he'll be there. And I also think that Miners will be there when we have those picks in the third round, because we have 2 picks in the third round, 2 or 3, right? 2. I know we have 2 that are pretty close together towards the end of the third, and I think that he'll be there at least for that first one, so I could see him going there. I think that that's probably a lock. I'm gonna imagine that that's where the Rams see him going. As far as the second round pick goes, I absolutely have no idea. I don't think that Samuel's going to be there. I'd love to see them take a linebacker. I'd love to see them take a true inside linebacker. And I know I keep saying that, and everyone thinks that that's not a big deal. But I'm
with you.
Yeah, I would love to see like a Dylan Moses, who I do think will be there.
Yeah, that's who I
want. Someone like him, or a Chaz Surratt, or
Surratt's too slow for me, so I'd probably say Moses, or if Jabril Cox is there, or if Cameron McGrone, or Jamin Davis. Those would, I think Garrett Wallow's a good option in like the 4th or 5th round.
Yeah, any of those second round guys, I love to see them go there. But I kind of think I'm also not entirely sure that they won't take like an offensive tackle in the second round. I really could see that happening because this is such an offensive tackle. Like there's like a plethora of them in this draft, like more so than normal. It's like there's an insane amount of guys. Like off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure when I look at my list of offensive tackles, there's like 6 that should be first round talents. I don't know if they'll all go in the first round. I'd say there's probably 12 that are first to second round talents, if not more. So this very well could be a draft where the Rams take Whitworth's replacement in the second round, or a guy that can move around a little bit and eventually be the replacement there. I would prefer them. Well, I don't know. I'd love to see them take like a Dylan Moses at 57. They might be eyeing Samuel for there if they've met with him a lot. It seems like they really like him. I just don't see him being there. I see him going early in the second round.
Samuel would be huge, but it might also signal that they're willing to not pay Darius Williams long term. So I love Samuel, and I would look like a genius because in my way too early mock draft for the 2021 draft I did last year, I had them getting Samuel, and I had them getting Amon-Ra St. Brown and James Wiggins. So if they get all 3 of those guys, I'm the oracle. But I don't know. I kind of feel like I feel like they'll take a linebacker, and I feel like everybody's going to be shocked except for you and I because we've been saying it. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Moses. Wouldn't be surprised if it's Jabril Cox, Jamin Davis, somebody like that. But I do think they're going to take a linebacker. And I do think that, the receiver is not off the table, even though they got Deshaun Jackson. And I do think I'd be a little upset if they took a tackle, because as great as his tackle class is, I think by the time they can, choose somebody, it's going to be a little too late. They can get a guy later on, but I wouldn't pick him at 57, a guy that's not going. I wouldn't pick a non-starter at 57 in my opinion.
They could also take minors and a tackle in the 3rd round, because those picks are so close together that I could see them going all offensive line in the 3rd round.
I wouldn't take Miners until the 3rd. I have a feeling he'll go 2nd. I think a team's going to fall in love with him, and it probably is going to be the Rams. But
he's not even my first pick that I'd want at that position.
No, not even close. I mean, I have so many other players that I'd want. I really think
Creed Humphrey's there. Oh my God.
Well, I mean, Creed Humphrey's the better player. He's the best center in the draft, in my opinion. But
same.
I think. I don't know. If I'm going with anybody, I'm going with Dylan Moses, who I believe will be there, and I'm getting Jordan Smith in the 3rd round.
Watch them trade out.
If they trade down, that's fine. If they trade down, that's fine. If they trade down like 10 spots, I'll do it.
It depends on what they get in return, because that's my thing with them. It's like I don't mind it, but at least get a good return, because I feel like sometimes the Rams have traded back and just like not gotten much in return for it.
Oh, I know. But, like when they traded down and they got like a 5th from trading down the 2nd round. Like, what are you doing?
Right. Like, if you're going to trade down for 57, fine, but get multiple get good picks from it.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And don't give up one of your own. I literally hate that so much, is that when the Rams will trade down, they'll get 3 picks, but then they'll give a pick away. They'll give 2 picks away to match that. So it's just a swap. And I'm like, ugh. I hate those trades.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I hope they pick at 57, just because I just feel like we never have like high round picks. Like the 2nd round is our 1st round. So I would like for them to keep a 2nd round pick. I think they will. I do think they will, but I could see them trading down. That's always a possibility, but yeah, and I'm pretty sure that the next episode that you and I do is going to be different. We're going to go into like Rams draft scenarios way in depth.
Yeah.
But for the purpose of this episode, I'm glad that we kind of went over possible options there. But next episode, we'll talk about like that really in depth. But yeah, as far as the NFL draft season so far, this hasn't been like a really crazy off-season / draft season. I think COVID does have a lot to do with that. It might not have to do a lot with like trades and stuff like that, but I do think as far as like what we do and what other people do and interviewing and everything has just gotten so like diluted and mixed up because of COVID and new protocols and availability and all that. So it has been a little weird. I don't think it's been as exciting as usual, but obviously draft day cannot not be exciting because
Yeah, no, I agree.
like no matter what happens, even if there's no trades or anything, it's still, you know, it's the big, conclusion. We see where everyone goes. It's always exciting. So once we get there, it'll be, I think, as magical and as exciting as ever. But as far as the draft season right now and things happening right now, there's just not too much since at least that trade that the 49ers made, I think was the big story there.
Yeah, no, Alexis, I definitely agree with that. There's a lot of truth to that. I do feel like the draft isn't as well. The draft is exciting. The draft process hasn't been as exciting because of all the limitations. And
Yeah.
I do think, if anybody has an issue with me or you saying that, I mean, you're not paying attention because there's a lot of limitations. And, the combine is something, I mean, I used to watch every single day of the combine, even at like
Same.
work. Like I'd sneak like my phone up and just kick it up on a stand and watch the combine while I worked. Like it's a big deal. And just to not have the NFL combine, I don't know, it kind of blew. It took the wind out of my sails, but not anywhere near as much as, somebody like me that's gone to the Senior Bowl 3 years in a row. And then this year just, it wasn't.
Well, the Senior Bowl got really confusing this year, and they mixed up a lot, and it just didn't pan out. Like I said, it's weird because you'd think with COVID and everything, so much got moved virtual, but it's not as smooth as the process as you'd imagine. I think it actually complicated a lot. I mean, you and I know just because of what we do every year for the draft, a lot of it is virtual. Most of it's virtual, but we were expecting, oh, this is fine. We normally do this. But then everybody else changed their rules. So while we were operating the same way, people ask, a lot of people have been asking me about like us interviewing prospects this year. It's not for lack of trying, but the rules changed. And the way that players had to do things changed drastically this year. And unfortunately, podcasts took a big hit in that way, but which is a bummer because I think part of the reason I think draft season has felt kind of like, I don't want to say stale, but it just hasn't felt the same, obviously for everyone, but especially people like you and me. This year is the lack of interviewing, which is something that we always look forward to, either interviewing people on our show or listening to players go on other shows. But it's just been a really kind of weird fever dream in regards to the NFL draft season this year. And I hope that it goes back to normal next year. But I do think that the way that they've operated this year has definitely contributed to kind of like, it's almost like draft burnout.
Yeah, I mean, I think really what it comes down to is, we used to be able to get interviews easily, and agents weren't as part of it, or they weren't. I don't know, they weren't as much of an obstacle, and I feel like this year they became kind of an obstacle because big media always gets first, and then people like us that are constantly emailing and reaching out. I think with COVID, it kind of changed everything, which was my biggest concern about COVID in regards to what we're doing, because I felt like it was going to change the draft and make it more intimate with the top NFL type of people, the top media, and, kind of take it away from the smaller media, which, I mean, it's a bummer and it's a shame because when you truly realize the value, in, a prospect coming on a show like this, we're not pushing 100,000 downloads an episode or anything like that. But I mean, we have a fan base and we have people that follow. And, I do think that our interviews have brought a different dynamic to podcasting as far as the Rams podcasting realm. I think we were really the first to get the interviews going on a level that no one had really seen in Rams podcasting. And now, when people ask you and I, like, hey, what's with no interviews? Like, what can you tell them? Like, hey, sorry, all the agents decided they didn't want to interview with the little guy anymore. I don't know what else to say, So hopefully when things get more normal, things will go back to normal. But I'm a little worried, though, Alexis, not going to lie, that this has kind of gone to this is the new normal, and it's more control of the prospects and not worrying about them going on a smaller show and a potential of getting grilled.
They're used to just be, in a way, the bigger disconnect was almost better for us and for shows like us, because you would have these prospects doing in-person interviews and meetings and stuff all day, and then at night they would call us and whatever. Now they spend the entire day doing everything virtual. So it's almost like, and they do things virtual with networks and stuff like that. So it's kind of like when you're asking a player, or if they're going through an agent, you're asking the agent to kind of get into that schedule. It's almost like they're not as down. And it's weird because it's like we thought the opposite would happen. Everybody thought the opposite would happen. We're like, this is great. Now everyone is more comfortable with this virtual stuff, Zoom, phone call, whatever. But what happened is the networks completely took over that, which makes sense. I mean, it makes sense, but it is a bummer for shows like ours and for people like us, because I think, some of the obviously interviewing players to us was important for the show, but also for me, and I believe for you as well, we really, the past 2 draft classes, I mean, we've interviewed, I don't have the number in front of me, I believe we've interviewed almost 200 NFL draft prospects. So
I would probably say more than that.
Probably more than that. But in the last 2 draft classes, I mean, we had, really got to have guys that we got to know and root for. And this draft class is obviously different. We aren't as connected to these guys on a personal level, which feels a little weird, doing this would have been our 3rd year. So going from 2 draft seasons where we really got to kind of like get to know guys and interview them and root for them, even though like a lot of them, almost none of them actually ended up on the Rams. Just that entire process and getting to hear about people like just on the cusp of achieving their dreams. And that could be a whole episode itself, talking about how cool that is. But yeah, it's just been weird. It's been like a really weird draft season. It's like a weird shock that almost just feels like kind of like now we're just numb to it, because it's just operated so weird. It's like, I don't know how to make of it. And it's almost like I'm not looking forward to it being over, but once it's over and once the draft completes, I really hope that by the time we get back into this again, that things have returned to normal, which hopefully they will.
I agree with that. Definitely. Big thank you to Louisiana Tech's offensive lineman Donovan Campbell and Virginia running back Shane Simpson, because they were our only guests, surprisingly.
Yeah.
And I remember telling them, like, oh, you're our first guests, and we thought we were going to have tons of them, but yeah, people were not as open this year. So, shout out to them. They're the real MVPs. But you're right. And you hit it on the head, because, developing these friendships, connections, et cetera. I mean, it's huge. I mean, I just talked to Blake Catchman, a guy that we had on the show. I brought him on my live stream on YouTube, and, we just chopped it up and had a blast, and, just looking at like Kyle Sloter, for instance, somebody that I interviewed on this show, and I've interviewed with you, and he's been on a few times. He came on, like, those interviews are so cool, because you are able to, talk to somebody and get to know them on a personal level. And it does connect you more with the draft class. And I totally agree with you. I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't feel as connected to this draft class on a personal level, and I shouldn't, because I've only interviewed 2 people out of 400 to 700 plus, so
the only benefit is I feel less bad critiquing this draft class.
That is true.
Because you run into the inevitable problem when you have gotten to the point of like you've interviewed most of a draft class. You're like, how can I be honest and
That's
say,
true.
while also like not destroying my bridge with that person. So the good news is with this draft class, I feel very comfortable being very blunt about my feelings and my opinions.
So you're becoming a terrible person. Good to know.
Thanks. And I just think, yeah, it's just been weird. It's been weird for everybody. Like, we don't need to sit here and talk anymore about how weird it's been for us, because like it's for everybody. Whether you listen to podcasts or you have a podcast or you're a football fan or a draft fan, whatever it is, it's just been so weird. And the combine, oh my gosh, like you said, like I lived for that. Even though it's like so boring, once I start watching it, I'm like, this is pretty boring, but I'm gonna watch the whole thing anyway. Like the anticipation of looking forward to the combine and then it starting is just awesome. But, we didn't have that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. In the next episode, guys, we will get into more specifics of like the Rams and the drafts. The next episode that we do, I believe, is going to be just breaking down all the picks we have and the different options that we have with those. But this episode was just basically about draft season in general and just some overall thoughts and just a free-flowing discussion about it, which I think is also, important because there's things going on in the NFL that aren't Rams related, but they still kind of affect the Rams realm, obviously, especially the 49ers situation. So we'll see, Jake. I mean, we'll see. We're almost there, 2.5 weeks.
Yeah, we are almost there. Like you said, 2.5 weeks. It should be fun. We'll have some fun plans, on deck. But that is going to do it for this show. For Jake Ellenbogen, and she is Alexis Kraft. This has been episode 349 of the Downtown Rams podcast. And we appreciate your listening and participation throughout this show's history. And if you've just joined us, we appreciate it now. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on wherever you get your podcasts, and keep following us on this ride that we're on. Episode 350 will be next week, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Get 20% off and free shipping with the code DTR at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and make sure to use code DTR. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped.